Good morning or good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome back to Sandy Bottom Homestead. Hope you're having a beautiful day. I've got bees flying around my head. He's not happy. And nature's throwing us a curveball right now, and we need to handle it. We need to get it under control, and we need to make sure that our gardens flourish during this time period. All right, it's been hot this week. It has been very hot, and you can see that we've got some summer stuff planted, but we've also got some summer stuff that is not planted. This is all spring and it needs cool weather, and we're just not getting that right now. It's coastal North Carolina. It's in mid-April, and today's gonna be 87 to 90 degrees. I know this is why I call it the Heartbreak Zone on the Backyard Gardens podcast, because it really is. It's like 90 degrees a day for all week. It's been right around 90, and then it'll drop back down next week and get to a more normal temperature. But I would venture to say you could expect more and more of this. So what are we going to do to take steps to protect our garden during these slight periods of this? You know, it's not going to last forever. It will eventually get warmer, but this yo-yo season, yo-yo effect isn't going to be as drastic, because this is pretty drastic. Let me just show you the crops that I'm kind of stressed about. One are these taters here. Taters, they don't really like to get too hot. And so they will die back, which means you have to harvest them. You can't really do much about it. So we really want to be very careful of this and cognizant of the weather. And then if we come over here, and I cannot believe it hasn't happened yet, but this lettuce, we're kind of waiting for it to start to bolt, and it hasn't bolted yet, but we're very, very cautious and just taking our time watching it, because if not, it'll end up like this. This bolted a long time ago, but this is something that we don't want to happen across the board. This was an anomaly. I don't know why it bolted, but it definitely did. And then over here, I'm not gonna go over there because we just put a new box of bees in, another new box, and they're not happy. So we're gonna stay away from them for right now. But the peas that we have up here, the snow peas, if it gets too hot, man, they will basically start to die off, and it's terrible. So we just wanna keep our eye on that, and we need to manage that appropriately. And I know that like most of this heat wave has kind of gone by the wayside at this point, but there's probably gonna be another one. And technically it's not a heat wave, but for spring, I think a heat wave has to be like over 90 degrees for 5 days. And for spring though, we're gonna call this a heat wave just for the sake of this conversation, because to a lettuce plant, 85 degrees is a heat wave. It's like drop dead hot, and we gotta remember that. Question becomes like, what can we do here? How can we manage this? And there's a couple things that you can do to help, but once this bolting starts, it's game over. You either save for seed, you eat as much as you can stomach until it gets too bitter not to eat it, or you pull it up, or you can do like this young lady's doing and let her get some pollen and then just kind of let it go. But once it starts to bolt, that's it. So we want to keep this from bolting. So what are we going to do? Well, we can do a couple things. One is you can obviously add shade, but you can see I haven't added any shade or anything like that. Two reasons for that. One is it's not that time of year, meaning once I set up my shade cloths, it's kind of a pain. It's not something I really want to take up and down, and it's not something that's going to be used continuously. So we could set it up for a day or two and just kind of help. But what I'm thinking is I just want to manage it a little bit different. And so what I want to do is I want to come out here periodically throughout the day. And I said this in a previous video, but I just really want to make it clear that this does help, and spray water on the foliage of the plants. And that's the first step that you can do. So this will help cool down the plant immediately. And then as the water evaporates off of it, and I said this in the last video, I'll say it again, it will not burn micro holes in your plant. So don't worry about that, because what happens when it rains in the middle of the day and the sun comes back out? There's water on there, nothing gets holes in it. So there's proof right there. But as the water starts to evaporate off of it, it'll actually cool it a little bit more. So that's one step you can take. Super easy. It's not watering. That's not what this is. This is, you know, I have a timer because I have to go all the way up there to turn on my water for back here. So I'll set my timer on there for 10 minutes, spray every garden down for 10 minutes. And then, you know, the whole thing, all of it. And then in 10 minutes, I'm probably done before that. And then I just move on. And I'll probably do that in the middle of the day and at the end of the day. A lot of times too, especially if you're getting warm temperatures at night, just doing it at the end of the day can help give that plant enough reprieve to kind of keep it going. But you've got to make sure that it's not bolting yet. And what we're really, truly concerned about is potatoes. We just don't want them to go. So that does make a big difference. Now, the other thing you can do, this applies to all summer. So don't think that this is a just now thing. But the other thing we can do is mulch. So mulching will definitely keep the soil cooler, which will do multiple things. It'll help keep the soil cooler. It will help the water stay in. And it's not the soil that needs to be cool, it's the roots. A lot of times we think of plants bolting and we're like, oh wow, it got so hot that it bolted. I should have sprayed water on it. Well, a lot of times it's not even the leaves, the foliage that causes it to bolt from the temperature. It's the roots getting hot. And so like this time of year, like I run the drip system, so I can cool the roots down by running water through it. It'll hit the roots most directly. You know, like these are planted about a foot apart on these peppers, which I don't need to cool them off, but just because they're easy to see, it will cool the roots off immediately. So you can do that. You can use the mulch. If you're going to use mulch or anything like that, put something light colored down because it won't absorb the heat. It will reflect it back. And that's important too. You know, like this is the darkest color shirt you'll see me wear all summer. You will not see me wear anything black because it gets too hot. You also won't see me wear anything white because it gets too dirty because I'm a slob, but that's a different story. I'd be getting dirt all over me and stuff, but you know how it is. It happens. I get done working, I'm like, all right, let's go. Doesn't work out well. So those are the two main things that you can do. Just to clarify a little bit, I don't know if I said this out loud. I'm not overly concerned about my cabbages just up and bolting. They should be okay. The hotter they get, the more they struggle. But because we're going back down, I'm not overly concerned about them. And I'm also not overly concerned about these rutabagas here that should be harvestable any day now. Let's do a check. Oh yeah, that's a nice little size rutabaga. We're getting there. So, you know, I'm not overly concerned about these at all, but in due time, it may have to be cooled off, but this isn't going to continue. I was looking at my forecast and it's this week, the high temperatures were like 85, 87, 82, 80. We'll just call it in the middle for today because, you know, they can't predict weather for crap. 88. And then tomorrow 70. So it's going to go back into like spring weather for the next 10 days. So we know we just need to weather this storm. It doesn't mean you got to run out and harvest everything real quick. Like, oh God, it's going to happen. It's the end of the world. That's not where we sit with this. That's not where I sit with this. Where I sit is we're going to come out here and we're going to handle our business and we're going to try and keep it cool. But we know because we've used the tools at our disposal to see like, hey, this is going to change and the temperature is going to come down. And then moving forward, we know like, hey, for the next 10 days, we should be good. Now, we do have to say this. If you're getting these high temperatures right now, and then you're just going to rock bottom after that, like back into the 40s, that's going to cause a plant to start to bolt because there's something that happens there. So stuff like lettuce will just bolt. Stuff like, well, let's just talk about this cabbage. This cabbage is a biennial. So it needs to think that it's been in the ground for 2 years. And the way that works is it goes by temperature, hot, cold, hot, cold. And so if you get these really high temperatures and then these really low temperatures, it'll trick it into bolting. You may think I'm crazy, but I'm telling you, that's how it works. And I'm gonna show you right now what I mean by that. So this plant is a cabbage plant. It is 6 months old today. Not today, today is not his birthday, so don't start singing a happy birthday or anything. But this is 6 months old. Never, ever, ever had a cabbage plant bolt on me. In the 18 years I've been gardening, I have not had a cabbage plant ever bolt. And I've pretty much grown cabbage off and on through a majority of that time. So we had El Nino, and so we had a warm winter, and then we had like bottom dropped. It was like 75 one day, and then it was 15 the next day. And that caused it to go into bolt mode. So just know that some of these plants, your biennial plants, stuff like onions, cabbage, possibly carrots, possibly maybe parsnip, stuff like that stuff, especially if you've had it in the ground since fall. And I know you're like, wow, it's been a long time since fall. Well, a lot of the plants will go into the ground and then they'll just kind of sit dormant and they'll start regrowing in the spring. So if you have something like that, that is going to cause it to think that it's the second year and can actually go to seed. So just be aware of that. And the best thing to do, like I said, is just try to take measures to keep it cool. I mean, to be totally honest, if I was really worried about it, I could do something as simple, as taking like a porch umbrella or something like that, and just know like where the sun is and just set it right here, and it will create shade as it moves, and it'll just kind of give it that break that it needs, because a little bit of shade will go a long way. And we're going to talk a lot more about shade because that's really important towards the end of summer. I'm going to be doing shade cloths on most of my garden to get fall going, and so I'm going to show you that as well. So this is just kind of managing this small period in time where nature throws you a curveball.
Goodbye.